we'll take you to a school of deadly arts, a farm in Georgia with a faculty of certified killers, a curriculum of death and destruction, and a dean who's operated, directly or indirectly, in 13 revolutions or paramilitary actions. Geraldo Rivera talks with him. Mitch Werbell, a mercenary commander with a homicidal hatred for communists.
We'll kill you. We'll go after your wife. We'll kill her. We'll go after your children. We'll kill them. Your cats, your dogs, your pigs, and your chickens.
He calls himself the war lover.
For years, we've heard about the legendary exploits of the spies and the secret agents, but times are changing. And with the recent shakeup of the CIA, I think it's fair to say that in real life, at least for now, the James Bond business has fallen on hard times. The man who's the central figure in tonight's report, Mitch Werbell, is an old-time secret soldier. He's fought around the world for different reasons, for his country, for his ideology, and for money. Many of his ideas, as you'll see, are extreme, but his story is part of the history of this country, the part of history that will never show up in any textbook. 61 years old now and suffering from cancer, Werbell decided to cooperate with us because to him, this report is his epitaph. So here it is, the epitaph of a war lover.
Ready? Fire! You keep your mind clear and you're thinking about the situation at hand, you'll survive.
Concentrate. Coil like that spring again. All right. When you're ready, beautiful throw.
This is easily the most unusual vocational school in the country. What they're teaching here is how to kill with weapons that range all the way from hatchets to machine guns. This is Mitch Werbell's farm, just a half-hour's drive from Atlanta, Georgia. And this peaceful setting is devoted to mastering the violent skills of death and destruction.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Mitchell Livingston John Werbell III. I am the commander of this operation. You are class Cobra 10.
Mitch Werbell is the flamboyant, lifelong soldier and freelance secret agent who runs the Cobra school.
We are here to teach you and to work with you in counterterrorism.
Because of his expertise with silenced weapons, Werbell is known in the military business as the Wizard of Whispering Death. His school was established officially just a year ago. It's run out of Werbell's 66-acre Georgia estate. He calls it the farm. The name is borrowed from a similar government operation, a top-secret school run by the CIA at Camp Perry, Virginia. The students at the farm are taught the skills of individual warfare. They learn to kill with pistols, with rifles, by daylight, and at night. Werbell's expertise has attracted students from different backgrounds, even different countries. They range from local law enforcement people to bodyguards for corporate executives, and at least one radical political party. The right-wing U.S. Labor Party is a regular client. Werbell is their chief of security. The tuition for the 10-day course at the Cobra school is $2,500, ammunition included. But if you're coming in from out of state, students are requested to bring their own weapons. So far, they've trained about 150 students here. And according to Mitch, the next 6 months are almost fully booked. The teachers at the farm seem a formidable collection, among the most professional and effective killers in the country. Burt Waldron, director of marksmanship. Waldron is credited with more confirmed kills than any soldier in United States military history. 113 enemy dead in Vietnam.
My whole life, my whole concept is weapons. My only interest is in weapons, the development of and the use of weapons.
Barney Cochran, Director of Unconventional Weapons Instruction. A retired Air Force colonel, he worked with the Air Commandos in Vietnam.
And without exception, they come out of here saying this thing in 1 week is far better than anything they ever got when they were in the service.
Cochran is said to be a legend in the shadowy world of the secret warriors. His present specialty, killing with hatchets, or even ordinary kitchen knives. Len Fergie Ferguson, Director of Operations, another Air Force veteran who specializes now in marksmanship and weapons instruction.
You're thinking in terms of learning to fire 2 quick rounds at an adversary. Never 1, 2. Don't shoot the gun out of his hand, see if he's going to move. Don't shoot him once and see if he's going to move.
Barry Worrell, chief handgun instructor. In his off time, a sheriff's deputy. He's known as one of the best pistol shots in the world. His specialty, what he calls El Presidente. Developed for the bodyguards of Latin American presidents, it envisions 3 attackers coming from behind. In less than 10 seconds, Worrell can fire 2 complete magazines into 3 separate assailants.
Most of them would stay alive if they listen to what we tell them and teach them, if they keep up their practice. If they don't, then that's their problem.
These men are all obviously expert. The other thing they have in common is devotion to the boss.
How would you describe yourself, Mitch?
Well, 5'6½", ruddy complexion, blue eyes,
Profession?
with a sense of humor.
Profession?
I'm a soldier. But it's more than that. Because of my family background and my total hatred for communism of any sort, any place, and under any name, I followed this course and still do.
Is anything fair against the communists?
Today, there's nothing fair in war. You kill or you get killed.
Is that what you teach your students, essentially?
That's right.
On first impression, the image Werbell projects is that of an unashamedly right-wing old soldier. But there's more to him than just commanding his military school for grown-ups. For one thing, there are his connections to big business, the intelligence community, and high-ranking military officers, like retired General John Singlaub.
I would say that in every place where Mitch has operated, it's either been as a contract employee or with the knowledge of the local CIA, even if they couldn't officially support it.
Singlaub was the two-star general forced to resign after he criticized the president's defense policies as being too soft. He knows Werbell as a sort of private CIA for hire, as a private individual who can mount the kinds of secret operations the CIA wanted done, but unofficially.
Mitch, as you suggest, is an expert on clandestine operations. He's an expert on weapons, particularly on special types of weapons, silencers and so forth. He has the respect of a lot of the ex-special forces people that have either worked with him in these operations or know of him and know that he has these connections. And he has an ability to bring all of this together when it is needed. And Mitch has been in that category throughout his life. If someone wants to bring together some mercenaries to help a government someplace, to try to get this through the Congress, to try to get this through the approval of the American people, would be almost impossible. Just the bureaucracy would make it impossible. So having someone who, as an individual, knows how to use communications, knows how to get things done, you could contract to have him get a mercenary force together rapidly and go to a certain area and do certain things. And that's the type of person that Mitch has been.
Where have you fought in the cause of anti-communism?
Well, there are so many that I had to make a list because I get confused as to when they happen. But essentially, it goes like this. China first, right at the end of the war. Matter of fact, twice in China. I got chased out of China one time. Cuba, Argentina, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Haiti, Mexico, the Bahamas, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and the Dominican Republic.
Werbell's love affair with the military started early and continued throughout his life, even though he has a wife and large family. His career began during the Second World War with the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which became the CIA. The man in the picture with him is William Colby, who ultimately became CIA director. Unlike Colby and the others who remained in government service, Werbell chose his own way. He became a renegade secret agent, a freelancer for hire, available for secret operations, coups, and revolutions. He's worked in many different countries for many different individuals and organizations. His only rule, he'll fight for anyone who's sincerely fighting against the communists. Over the years, that's meant armed support for a long string of right-wing dictators.
Why do I prefer dictators? Number one, invariably, the ones I know are totally anti-communist, because communism would ruin their little games. So they are anti-communist. Now, I'm willing to put up with almost anything that will sincerely and vigorously fight communism.
Werbell's private crusade against communism was concentrated in the Caribbean area during the late 50s and early 60s. He was violently anti-Castro, carrying out secret military operations in an effort to maintain the Batista regime in power. When Castro took over anyway, Mitch carried out many operations aimed at infiltrating communist Cuba, like this one in 1965, aboard the CIA-supplied gunboat, the Venus. The Dominican Republic was another frequent battleground. Initially, Mitch fought to maintain the regime of dictator Rafael Trujillo. When U.S. policymakers decided Trujillo had to go, Mitch changed his allegiance and ended up supporting General Antonio Imbert, a member of the group that assassinated Trujillo. Several years later, when leftists attempted a takeover of that country, President Johnson sent in the Marines. Mitch Werbell was also there, supplying weapons and advice to the right-wing generals who crushed the revolt. During the Civil War, Werbell assumed several identities. He worked as a part-time reporter for Mutual Radio as one cover for his military activities. He also posed as a banana planter, living in the Dominican Republic.
This is the story of 3 American civilians who tasted the horrors of this bloody Civil War. 2 are journalists. The other is a banana planter living in the Dominican Republic. His name is Mitchell Werbell, and you will hear his personal account of what happened on this particular day.
We were in my apartment in rebel territory when 2 glasses on the table in the living room were shattered by bullets. A friend of mine and I hit the floor as the firing continued for about 30 seconds. And that's a long time, and 1,000 bullets later.
There were further military adventures in Guatemala, Nicaragua, and in 1965 there was a plan to invade Haiti. Werbell wanted to overthrow the regime of Papa Doc Duvalier and install a puppet government that would allow him to use Haiti as a base for raids against Cuba. The plan collapsed when Werbell and 6 others were indicted for violating U.S. neutrality. The 6 others were convicted, but the case against Werbell was dropped. The official reason, insufficient evidence. After the Haitian fiasco, Mitch returned home to focus his attention on designing, manufacturing, and selling specialized weapons. He headed a company called the Military Armaments Corporation and designed what's considered to be the finest and most effective silencer ever developed. That brought him to Vietnam, where his expertise with those silenced weapons was especially appreciated by military officers pinned down by that unending guerrilla war. Aside from selling his weapons, Werbell also conducted private military operations, sometimes using fraudulent credentials like this one from ABC News. Mitch was a traveling gun salesman throughout the Southeast Asian area, frequently visiting Laos, Cambodia, and especially Thailand, where these documents indicate he made substantial sales. And while he was spending most of his time in Asia, this U.S. Treasury Department document indicates that Werbell didn't miss the chance to supply arms for an unsuccessful right-wing coup attempt on the Caribbean island of Grenada. In all, he participated in at least a dozen foreign adventures.
Could you live without the fighting? Could you live without the war and the training for war and the killing and the training for killing and the counter-killing?
Oh, certainly I could. I could take up collecting walking sticks or something.
I mean, it's part and parcel of you, isn't it?
It is. I'm a war lover.
If you didn't know his background, it would be easy to like Mitch Werbell. He's certainly a spunky and fascinating character. But some of his behavior would seem more at home during the Dark Ages. During the war in Vietnam, for instance, Mitch brags how he once bombed North Vietnam with rats. The The rats were infected with bubonic plague, and again, according to Mitch, the idea was to spread the dread disease among the communists. Precisely because of Mitch's sometimes extreme conduct, some of the individuals and corporations he's worked for are reluctant now to admit any connection. One of them is a major corporation doing business in Argentina. After receiving several kidnapping threats, they called in Mitch Werbell.
Some of the South Americans in Argentina were creating quite a stir. They were kidnapping, they were killing, and one of our clients got a $1 million threat on a kidnapping case, and they didn't know what to do, so they called us. And a team of 2 went down there, and I have never heard of another kidnap threat on Coca-Cola.
It was Coca-Cola that had hired you?
Ouch. Oh, you ought to cut that out. But that's who it was. And they'll deny it. They love denying the fact that they had anything to do with me.
Coca-Cola did refuse to comment, but this letter signed by Bud Farnsworth, then chairman of their Latin American operations, does identify Werbell as an employee. That was later confirmed in a recent phone conversation with Mr. Farnsworth, recorded by Werbell.
ABC Network is doing a 2020 movie. Yeah. And they're taking copious notes and things, among them statements from people like Jack Singlad, who I've been with for 30 years, you know. Uh-huh. When they ask me, like, who do we work for? Sure. I said, well, one of them was Coca-Cola. Uh-huh. Would you mind saying that I work for you? Why, yeah, I don't have any objection, no.
But 3 weeks ago, after we asked Farnsworth for an interview to include in this 2020 report, he told Werbell he could not talk to us because of company pressure.
Good afternoon. This is Mitch again.
Hey, Mitch, how are you?
I'm just fine, but it seems like some of your people are having to hemorrhage or something.
Well, yeah, my God, I've gotten about a dozen telephone calls.
I can't understand, I don't really care why they put up that little storm about this thing.
I don't really know why, but that's the way that it turned out to be. Yeah, I've been away from there now for 5 years.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm not really too familiar with what is going on at all.
Now, I started to tell you about Argentina. I don't know whether you want me to go back to that, but I'll tell you how we stopped it. We said, number one, anybody kidnapped, go ahead and kill them because we're not going to ransom them. Not for 10 cents. But we will go after you. We'll kill you. We'll go after your wife. We'll kill her. We'll go after your children. We'll kill them. Your cats, your dogs, your pigs, and your chicken. Of course, that was bunk. That was propaganda. We weren't going to kill anybody except the men.
Werbell told us that during the last years of the Nixon administration, he was advised to relocate from his base in Georgia. According to Werbell, the CIA had strongly suggested that in the climate of the Watergate era, his activities could prove an embarrassment. This time, he set his sights on the Bahamas. For almost 350 years, the Bahamas were part of the British Empire. With the ending of colonial rule in 1973, the coming of independence for these islands created a golden opportunity for Mitch Werbell and his associates. They had what seemed to them a brilliant scheme. Essentially, this was it. They were going to try to seize the second largest island in the Bahamas and make of that island their very own independent nation, a brand new country run strictly by Mitch Werbell and the conservative American businessmen who had been backing him. Businessmen fed up with government regulation back home in the United States. The island is called Abaco, and it was to be their very own brave new world. The plan went like this. When the Bahamas got its independence from Britain, Abaco would get its independence from the Bahamas. They had big ideas for this tiny island just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Werbell's backers were united by their total distrust of any form of government. To ensure that Abaco became their kind of country, they even wrote their own constitution, which promised no taxes and no governmental interference in business. They even trained their own army, but before anything could happen, they needed to cultivate local support. Island resident Chuck Hall was installed as president of the so-called Abaco independence movement.
But Mitch himself had the connections in Washington. I was able to get to see and talk with Undersecretary of States for International Affairs, Latin American Undersecretary of States again for Latin American Affairs, and persons who had been very highly operative in, say, Vietnam, who then at that time, because of the heat, had to get out. And I felt that we had the background there to handle anything that could come up in the Bahamas.
Mitch's job was to provide the expertise and the manpower.
The manpower would have been Abaconian, but the expertise, yes.
This was going to be the flag of Mitch Werbell's new country, this island of Abaco, a country devoted to protecting and enriching the wealthy businessmen who'd financed the independence movement. But Mitch Werbell told us he saw it slightly differently. To him, this country represented a new base of operations, a country with no rules, no laws to interfere with either his weapons business or his military ventures into other countries. The population of Abaco is about 45% white, 55% black. Werbell's independence scheme was based on splitting the two groups. Generally, the whites were for it, the blacks opposed. Percy Archer and Gordon Hudson were part of the opposition.
I was told by certain security personnel that they were actually mercenaries, soldiers present here in Abaco, doing the watch, taking statements, observing people, and possibly coming up with intelligence reports on various key personnel.
You know, Percy, these fellows went so far as to do intelligence searches of all of the people on the island. And because you're a prominent citizen, they did one on you. Take a look at this. Percy Archer, age 50 at the time, and they wanted to know if they could get you, if they could buy you off, the likes and dislikes. Percy Archer loves A, money, B, clothes, and younger women in that order. He strongly dislikes any competition. And with the reassurance of the piece of the action, Archer would do almost anything. How do you react to this?
No, I don't. Yeah.
How do you feel about the men that did this investigation that thought that they could buy you onto their side?
Well, they thought whoever did this, they probably thought I was like them.
If Werbell had won, what kind of country would it have been?
He would have created a big business empire for big business, and only the special friends of his would have handled the finance and the empire and whatnot, whatever. It would have been another, what should we say, Rhodesia or South Africa, had Werbell come to power.
The grand scheme for Abaco collapsed after a three-way struggle for power between Werbell, the financial backers, and the local independence movement. Each faction was fighting for control, and in the end, none succeeded.
Heel.
So Mitchell Livingston Werbell III failed in his effort to gain his own country. But he still runs his school in Georgia. And with the support of powerful friends in high places, he's still available for what he calls any battle in the never-ending war against communism.
The real reason is to keep America, America, to keep the goddamn communists out of here, to keep the goddamn socialists out of here, to keep any ethnic group, with the exception of my own, running the country.
How would you respond if somebody said that you were a fascist?
How would I respond? Shake hands with them and then punch them in the mouth when they weren't looking.
How about a militarist?
Militarist, I'd kiss them.
To demonstrate just how active Werbell remains, while we were in his home taping this report, he received a request from the government of a certain Latin American country to send 600 soldiers to help quash a leftist revolt. This old soldier has no intention of fading away.